it back to 10 years ago when you said Donald Trump was an authoritarian. And you know what, Scott, I've got to hand it to you. That was a remarkable forecast because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides. By tonight, ordering investigations into American citizens. That's why members of his party, that's why members of his city's running the executive against him.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I came across this debate clip on CNN where Miles Taylor really goes head-to-head with Scott Jennings, and honestly, the whole exchange is worth watching because it just keeps escalating. Before we get into it, drop a comment and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.
A lot has happened tonight. Buckle up. Marjorie Taylor Greene is learning what it feels like to be on Trump's bad side. She has been one of the most vocal Republicans calling for the full release of the Justice Department's investigative files on Jeffrey Epstein. And now President Trump tonight is unendorsing. He is withdrawing his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene and writing on Truth Social that all I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. And then he added that I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. There was a lot there. So you can go and then talk about a lot. Then MTG fired back with screenshots of text messages that she claims where she claims that Trump is lying and that she did not call him, also saying that it is astonishing, really, how hard he is fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out. She argued that she has been one of Trump's strongest supporters, but that she doesn't, quote, worship or serve Donald Trump. On top of unendorsing, he actually said that he would support anyone who would be primarying her in the upcoming election. Who wants to take this one on?
Well, I can tell you that is not unusual in politics. Political romances are often short-lived. And she has been critical of him not only about the Epstein files, but about his involvement in foreign affairs. And I don't mean with women. I mean in various parts of the world.
You said it, no.
Just to clear the table on that one. and so it's not surprising that they have had a breakup of sorts. After all, he didn't give her a ring. He just supported her for a little while.
Listen, this fire is spreading. I mean, right, it started off talking about Epstein in the beginning. Then during the shutdown, she was one of the few Republicans that correctly identified Donald Trump's unwillingness to deal with the ACA subsidies and lower healthcare costs for Americans as being one of the reasons why the shutdown occurred.
Yeah, she was very outspoken about that.
Now she's talking about foreign policy. This is not going away. Whatever is going on between them seems to only be heating up, and I think the rest of us should get the popcorn.
I think
here for it.
And a war with words, sorry, Scott, a war with words with Donald Trump is such a risky business that I cannot believe she has the bravery to engage in it, because even if she was right, she's still going to lose.
Is there an example of anyone beating Donald Trump at this game?
Never. This is his game, and he's great at it, and she's barking up a tree that she's going to fall on her really hard.
You know, it's interesting. He has some people who profess to be strong supporters who do oppose him more often than the people that you might not think are his strongest supporters. She's one of them. Thomas Massie in Kentucky is another one. Rand Paul, my home state senator, he takes on Trump, although they profess to be Trump supporters. In this case, I think he had the order out of order. I trace all this back to his decision, the righteous decision to strike Iran. She was against it. So were some of the people who occupy that wing of the party. He defied them. And since that time, they all seem to be stridently picking at him on this issue or that. And then, of course, everybody knows in Washington, Miles, you know, the fastest way to get in front of a television camera if you're a Republican is to come out and crap on Donald Trump. And so that is what she is doing.
But, you know, Scott,
that is what she is doing because
I trace it back further than that, Scott.
Over these issues, and that's what happened.
I really disagree with the way Scott Jennings framed this. It feels like he's trying to twist what's actually going on. He's acting like MTG is only speaking out to get attention or score TV time by criticizing the former president. But that's not how things have played out inside the Republican Party at all. For years, any Republican who pushed back against the party leader didn't gain influence. They lost it. Just look at what happened to people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. When they broke with the leadership, they didn't get rewarded. They were pushed out, primaried, and basically shut out of the party. Their careers took major hits because they chose to speak out. That's why Scott's argument doesn't make sense. He's treating MTG's objections to the Iran strike and other policies like some kind of attention-seeking move. But isn't that exactly what members of Congress are supposed to do? If they disagree with military action, it's literally part of their job to question it. That's part of the checks and balances built into the system. What stood out the most to me is how Scott ties everything back to what he calls the righteous decision to strike Iran. There's no discussion about whether the decision was wise, justified, or in America's best interest. It's just automatically right because of who made the call. That's not real analysis. That's treating political decisions as off limits simply because of the person behind them. And just to be clear, I'm not defending MTG's full record. She obviously has her own controversies. But saying any Republican who disagrees with leadership on foreign policy, healthcare, or anything else is just chasing attention, that sets a really unhealthy expectation. It basically says representatives shouldn't challenge their own party, even when they believe something is wrong. What we're seeing is a pattern where Republicans are expected to show total loyalty on every issue, and if they don't, they're labeled as disloyal or just trying to make a scene. That's not how a functional party in a democracy should operate.
Scott, I trace it further back than that. I trace it back to 10 years ago when you said Donald Trump was an authoritarian. And you know what, Scott, I've got to hand it to you. That was a remarkable forecast because 10 years later, I think you called it. Here's Donald Trump today, the man with the heart and soul of a fascist, showing us he now has the bona fides.
That's garbage.
By tonight, ordering investigations into American citizens.
Do they
That's
deserve
why
it?
members of his party, that's why members of his
he's running the executive
against him.
Why are you so upset he's running the executive branch?
For the same reasons you predicted he shouldn't. For the same reasons, Scott, you said he violated his oath and he should never be back in that office.
I happily voted
That's
for
why
him.
I'm upset for the man being in the Oval Office.
I happily voted for him 3 times.
I know that.
The alternative was terrible.
And a lot of your friends were shocked.
Yeah, well, a lot of my friends would have been shocked at you trying to subvert the elected president of the United States, which you did.
Well, I proudly did. I proudly
Some
said
mid-level
to the
staffer
country
substituting his
who
judgment
this
for the
man
elected
was.
president of the United States.
Well,
Good
Scott,
luck,
I would have
brother.
loved to have seen you stand
Good
up
luck.
to it.
Good luck.
Back to MTG. Is it the sign of a changing tide? Is it the sign, or is it a singular one back and forth between one Republican who is getting into a fight with Donald Trump? Or do you think there is a possibility that it is the beginnings of Republicans seeing past the Donald Trump era?
The short answer is that we don't know.
Because you've got like Thomas Massey saying exactly that. Like your vote on this discharge petition is going to outlast Donald Trump's time here. So you need to consider that when you make your decision.
But if we keep paying attention, what we see is that last week the president got his clock clean in an election. All the Republicans got their clock clean in an election. This week we see what's happening with the Epstein files. So next week we're going to see them take a vote. And if we see a bunch of Republicans defect on the Epstein files, I think what we're seeing is the real testing of the waters to find out whether or not you can oppose Donald Trump and still get elected. When we talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the one thing we haven't talked about yet is her fundraising prowess. And according to sources, she is the most popular fundraiser in the Republican Party other than Donald Trump.
She's at 12% in the
they're
polls.
going to divide up.
This prediction about no one's going to care about this.
I was asking it a question. I wasn't predicting it.
No, you said people were. Somebody said that this was going to outlive.
Tom Massey.
And the prediction that this was going to outlive.
Mhm.
I totally disagree with that. I think right now more people are worried about whether they can watch ESPN on YouTube TV tomorrow than they care about this, and that's certainly going to be true in 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years
So,
from today.
Eric,
What they do care about, hold on, but what they
The
do care about,
Republicans did not get their clocks cleaned
they
last
do
week.
care about
They
the
did
fact the
not.
president is sort of breaking everything.
Right.
They see a hole in the White House right now. I was in Detroit last weekend for an event, and it was the number one thing people came up to me at the scholarship dinner to ask about. Is it okay for the president to tear down the White House without anybody's permission?
That was the number one thing.
That was the number one thing that people brought up unprovoked.
The
to find out about.
I keep hearing this over and over again. Is like no one cares about this because they only care about that.
You know what they care about? They can't buy a house.
That they can't. They care about
houses
affordability.
aren't unaffordable and that food costs too much. But they don't care about the White House. The fact is, a president who can't model the White House.
Many people care about the White House.
That's ridiculous.
Every
a president
visitor-
who can
Many
wage
Americans
war,
care about the White
who can
House.
make
You
major
don't care about the White
decisions,
House.
can't remodel a room in the White House.
He didn't remodel it. He
Room.
tore it down. He tore down
tomato
a third of the White House.
Tomato tomato. In the middle of a
I couldn't
government
tear down my
shutdown.
garage without getting a permit from the city.
And that's
He
what
can tear down
But let me ask you this:
destroying our
I
country.
I can't believe the argument Betsy is making here. She's acting like the situation is no different than the White House doing its usual yearly room updates. That comparison really doesn't hold up, and here's why. There's a huge difference between routine maintenance, which goes through strict preservation rules and proper approval, and what's being talked about here, which sounds like major changes happening without the required process or oversight. Trying to frame those two things as the same is misleading. The White House isn't just another building. It's a protected historic site. There are guidelines in place for a reason. You can't simply tear things down or make structural changes without going through the correct steps. That's not about politics. That's about respecting a national landmark that belongs to everyone. What bothers me most is how dismissive Betsy is about people caring. Of course, Americans care about housing costs and food prices, but that doesn't mean they can't also care about how important government buildings are treated. People are capable of caring about multiple things at once. Suggesting otherwise feels condescending. And the whole "people don't care about this" line doesn't make sense, especially when other panelists literally said that people in places like Detroit brought it up on their own. It's clear some voters do notice and do care. This isn't about being angry at basic upkeep. No one is upset about repainting or updating furniture. The concern is about bigger structural changes happening outside the proper system that every past administration followed. When you skip those steps, people are going to ask questions, and they should. To me, this feels like classic deflection. When the actual details are hard to defend, you downplay it, compare it to something harmless, and then treat anyone who cares as out of touch. But viewers can clearly see the difference between routine work and major changes that bypass established rules. So what do you think about this whole debate? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.